Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and we are ready for another update of the Freightliner and Roadster. Let's head on over to the workbench. Alright, so we are back over at the workbench, and this is the second update on the Freightliner and Roadster build. So I've got my truck just sitting here because I don't have the bottom part of the bumper glued. But if you can see that in the video, you can see that this truck is as low as you can get it. I have literally got this truck down to where in real life it would probably only be a couple of inches off the ground. So that's as low as you can get this truck in the front. And then I'll show you the work that's went on in the back and where we're at on that as far as it being low and level. So we're going to get to that. First thing we'll do is just set this guy to the side, because we are going to keep that off until final assembly, because once you get that assembled on there, you cannot take the cab off and on, as far as I know, without breaking it. So we're going to take the cab off real quick, just to get this out of the way. And the little bit I got done on the cab this week is I did put my contour putty on here. I did fill that in. So the cab itself is ready for primer. That way we can see if there's any imperfections left in the body. And even in this spot, we could spray over it and see if anything we need to fix on that. Another thing that I need to do to the cab before primer, actually, is if you can see the little bit of gap in the difference of the body there. Now, on the right side there, right here, I haven't touched that side of the body, but you can see there is a bit of a difference in the gap between the body there and the gap between the body over here. It is nothing over here, and there's a little bit there. So I will put contour putty there, get that all dried up on the next week, and the next time you see it, it'll be primered. So I won't even show that. I'll contour putty it, sand it, prime it, and have it the same as this, so that that's taken care of, because we don't want it looking like that. So we're gonna, everything we talk about, we're gonna get it out of the way so I don't repeat myself. All right, for the chassis, you can see it's a little gobbed up everywhere. I'll talk about that in just a second. So the only tires I haven't sanded are the front. I've sanded all the tires on all the rest of the vehicles. Got those looking lifelike as far as that goes. I did attach the rear frame that I built into the chassis. All I had to do was do some grinding down on the outside edges of it until I got it the size I wanted, mostly with a hobby knife. And then I was able to slide it all the way in. I glued everything, and once I let that completely set up, then I got to looking at it and saw that the height difference it was over the back tires, what the height was like way too high. And so these are going to get brought down here to where it's just above the rear tires, because if I left it up like this, then the car would be sitting here and part of the car would be above the roof of the truck. And I did not want it like that. I wanted it as low in the bed as it could be. So I decided to chop all these down, and then we're going to, there we go. So if you can see the bubble here, you can see that it's not level yet. And I want to get the rear end level so that the car sits level on the truck. And so that's going to be fixed in this coming week. I'm going to get these filed down completely level. And also, as far as the frame goes, how when I first built it, I kind of jacked it up. And we talked about that last week. If you see that there's a little bit of difference in height on the right side compared to the left side, since it's all going to be covered up and you won't be able to see it, I'm going to sand that down to where it's just as level with this side. Get this side sanded down nice and smooth, and then I'm gonna run the supports. This one ain't long enough, of course, because it was one of the top pieces, but I'll run the supports here, and then it'll be boxed out around the tires, and then we'll add the skirts and everything so that all you can see of the rear tires will be just a little bit of the rear tire showing, something like that. So you see I got the airbag supports in here so that the truck just sits at its lowered height. And so we'll get those installed after it gets primed and painted. So that's one thing that I'm definitely waiting on to finish the install of the rear axle, is this will be installed as soon as I'm done with the frame part of the truck. Once it is completely done, I've primed and painted it and got it how I want it, then I will install the rear after it has been painted also. So once those two are done and I'm happy with both of them, it might be the next episode or it might be the one after that. This will be mated to here, and then we will have this lined up and we'll have us a rolling chassis. You see I do have contour putty on all the cracks and crevices. That was from my awful hack job when I built the rear frame. And you see the contour putty I used was this Tester's contour putty. There's two different kinds I bought. So I used this contour putty. One, it's inexpensive. Two, it's very easy to sand. And I think this kind of contour putty will work fine, especially as long as it's not in a visible surface. Now the cab, I did put the same contour putty on it, and we will see how that turns out, being that is a visible surface. But you can see I got some stress cracks here in the contour putty. So we're going to sand her down this week, and we'll see how that turns out. I did get a different kind of contour putty, and this contour putty, I'll show you on a truck that I'm putting it on, actually dries a little differently. And so I'm doing something with this truck that will be in a future build, but just wanted to show the difference in the contour putties I'm using and how they actually go. I was going to do a how-to video on the contour putties, but it's really not much to it, just that they do dry differently when you use them, and it is a different process when you sand them. One sands real easy, almost like powder. The other one is like almost kind of like sanding fiberglass. It's a lot harder to sand, takes a lot more time to sand. So I didn't want to scuff up the front of the truck trying to sand the crap out of it. So I just decided to put the cheaper contour putty on it, and we'll see how it goes. So we'll get the frame built for that, get that all finished up, and then that will get primed and painted hopefully this week. And then we will have us rolling chassis for the next update, I'm hoping. And so all these are the pieces that we hear. All these will get ripped off, and once they get all leveled out, these will still be these pieces, but I'm going to build a complete box frame for it here on the table, get it all nice and level, and then set the whole box frame up here, and it'll be one solid piece. It'll be glued on, and we won't have to worry about trying to get this piece right or that piece. Just to add real quick, guys, there are a lot of different playlists on the channel now, and so if you guys take a look at those, you will be able to browse through your favorite playlists now, instead of having to just scroll down the channel and trying to find something that you're interested in. I've got it all separated in 124 and 125 scale. I'm going to have armored vehicles coming on the channel soon, so there's a 135 playlist, but there's nothing on it yet. There's also an aircraft playlist that right now it just has the mail call on it, and as soon as I start to build the F-14, that will get put in place of that video, and then so you guys, you'll start to see builds as far as those things are concerned. And so if you're coming to the channel and you only want to see a certain scale model built, or you only want to see a certain type of content, I have got it separated now that as things get uploaded to the channel, you'll be able to click on the channel, go to the playlist, and just pick out whatever you want to watch and watch to your heart's desire. So just wanted to throw that in there in this video for you guys to let you know that I'm working hard to update things on the channel so that I can make it more user-friendly for you guys, so that you guys can continue to enjoy the content. And if there's things that I'm doing on the channel that you either don't want to see, or you might not be as excited about as other parts of the channel, then I've set it up so you guys don't have to watch those things. You can just go to the part of the channel that you guys want to see and enjoy those playlists that I have set up. So thank you guys, and here's the rest of the video. All right, so on to the Roadster. You see that I do have the engine that does come in the box for the 29 Ford Roadster. I was going to put the Lamborghini engine in it, and the more I worked on it and the more I got to looking at it, the more I did not want it sitting in an exposed environment, just because I don't have the skill level just yet on how to make this beautiful. But it is going to go in another car that will have some of the hood and front end wrapped around it, so that this is less visible. And it'll still get all the Lamborghini pieces that go with it, and most likely we'll even get the whole intake kit that comes with the Lamborghini on that Roadster. So that car, it's a regular car, but it will be built as a Roadster, and it will have the whole Lamborghini setup. So they'll still get it, still have 12 pipes sticking out of the car on that build. But this build, I got to looking at it, and I decided to build the engine one night about 2 in the morning. And when it just sat there with all the rest of my engines you see in the back, there was no way I couldn't put that beautiful Revell engine, which looks the size of a 572 big block Chevy engine. I don't really know which it is. I forgot what it was when I first started talking to people about it. But it looks like a giant engine. So I decided I had to have that engine in the car. So did the whole buildup of it. I'm going to go back and now that I've got it all built up, I am going to detail and paint it. And had somebody ask me how do I paint it once I got it all glued up like that. I'll take a small paintbrush, toothpicks, detail brushes, and all the stuff around the chrome that needs to be colored. You just have to take your time and be careful with it. I purely did this for experiment to see. I've seen some people build them like this and then detail them, so I wanted to see how that would turn out and if it was a faster way for me to get this build completed. So we'll see how that turns out, and then the next update, either I'll be fussing about how difficult it was, or I'll be ecstatic on how easy it was to paint and get it completely done. So, had to put that engine in it. If anybody's disappointed in not getting the Lamborghini engine in the Roadster, I just couldn't see not putting this engine in there, as beautiful as that engine is. So the Lamborghini engine will go in a car that I'm going to turn into a rat rod. So don't despair. It will get used, and we'll get to see that Lamborghini engine in a car as a rat rod. So one thing I noticed about this chassis, I'll take the body off of here, is if you can look at there, and I got it level, you see that the chassis is slightly warped. So I installed the front end with a little bit of super glue, just to do like a tack weld. That's kind of what I use it for, unless it's something that you can't glue together with the regular tester's glue. If it works better with super glue, then I use that. But I kind of use this as a tack weld to see how stuff is going to turn out. So I put a tiny bit of super glue on the inside and tacked the front into it before I removed any of the chrome or anything like that to make a good weld for the tester stuff. And I knew it would also make it easier to remove, and found out that the front of this frame is warped a little bit, and when I put the tires on, it was going to leave it with the tires sticking up. So I decided that I was going to disconnect that, get the tires glued on the front axle, and then set the frame down on it and glue it. And any kind of issues that I would have with the body as I put it back together, I would address when I got to that level. Because at this time, I don't know how to fix the warp in that. You probably could use some heat. You might could cut it, but I didn't want to mess up the build and just wreck it. So when I learn that skill, that will be how I fix those in the future, and I'll even do a how-to of how I learned that. But I did get tires, the axles put in and everything on this build. I got the rear tires done like I said I was going to do. And at first, when I tested the rear tires out, just did a dry fit on them, I saw where the rear end was below here and the clip wasn't cut out. So I did decide to cut the rear clip off of it, which was setting like this right here. And because, like I said, I wanted to do something different with the suspension. And what I wanted to do is fix the ride height of this the way it's supposed to look as a rat rod with the semi tires on the back. And so with having to raise the axle in order to lower the car to get the right ride height, this has to be moved out of the way. So I cut that out with my Dremel, and then you can also see I had to cut a hole in the floor pan, which I'm going to clean up a little bit better, because the drive shaft with the axle being above the frame needs all that space in order to connect into the transmission. Now I've done a little bit of kit bashing within the box build, because I decided to go with the B version of the chassis, which is a channeled chassis. Well, this engine is not for that chassis as far as the way all the build goes. This one is actually for the A process, which I can show you. You can see the different engine builds here, A and B, and then see on this side, this shows how to assemble the whole chassis for the A version of the engine, and this page shows how to assemble the B version of the chassis, which the chassis is a different number. So with it being a different chassis and a different engine combo, when you put this in here, we'll flip this over. I actually had to cut the pin off of the transmission mount, and I had to trim the actual transmission mount so that I could get this in there, because the way that everything sets in the car is a little different than it would if I was using the correct chassis, and which would line the floor pan up like it's supposed to be. So all that had to be modified in order to get the engine to fit the right way. And so the drive shaft had to be the drive shaft for this chassis. I thought it had to be that one for this engine, because it's a slight bit difference in the drive shaft. There's a tiny bit of difference in the drive shaft, just a little bit. And so the longer drive shaft is supposed to go with this engine. And so I tried to use that, but it was just a hair too long. So the shorter drive shaft that's actually meant for the other engine in this chassis, that's the drive shaft that worked. So that might be a heads up if you decide to try to use a different engine with a different chassis that comes in that box kit. So all I did with the rear end, after I cut the top part of the plate off, and then I cut this whole rear frame off of it, and then I just flipped it upside down. And so that way I didn't mess with the coilover spring bar. I didn't mess with how it's already connected to the axle. I know in real life you would have just raised it up and then welded new mounts on top of everything, but it was easier in a scale version to just flip it upside down and then re-glue it all back together. All I did was sand up these areas where I had cut it and then remounted it and just glued the entire thing all the way down. Nice old glue bomb all the way down that seam and sealed it all back together. So that thing was solid. Once it cured, it was solid. But the first couple of days, and if I tried, I could probably pop it loose if I really like put a ton of pressure on it. But for whatever pressure that is on these model cars, it'll be fine. You'll never even know that it had that modification if you just saw the car sitting somewhere. So as far as the chassis here, we are ready for paint. We're going to do prime and paint on the chassis, and then we'll be ready for the next step on this. And so we're going to prime and paint everything in flat black, and then we're going to detail the rims, the color they're supposed to be. We'll detail the drum brakes, the colors they're supposed to be. And so we'll get everything color coordinated like it's supposed to look. And then we will start doing interior work and all that kind of stuff, which most of that stuff will be pretty much how it is, how anybody else would build it. Just put them inside, glue the inserts inside, or, you know, paint and prep them, then glue them inside. And then, so a lot of that stuff's going to be pretty standard. But this is pretty much all the modifications I got done with everything this week. If you take a quick look up here, just my camera, I did find my wall clock. And so all it needed was a battery. So I got that in there. And then I did get my little diorama deal set up here. I got that all set up, and it gave me a lot of extra room to put my models and stuff. I did show a brief look at this in an update video I did about what was going on the channel, why there weren't no videos, and I hadn't got the letters put up on it. So that's what I got to after that week, all that stuff that was going on. Looks like we're only a couple of videos to the end here. That's it for the update on the cab over and the Roadster for this week. And glad to get that uploaded to you guys. And thank you guys for watching. And we will see you in the next video.